it's not gonna. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I would take approval of the agenda as presented. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Rick, seconded by Sean. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. If there's no questions, I would take a motion to approve that.
If you could just give me a moment.
Okay.
On the accounts payable, I had a question. It's others to be reimbursed, but it's display sales and it says snowflakes for $16,000.
Yes, that is with the chamber. We purchase them and the chamber is buying them back for us. I think we're able to get them at a better rate than what they were.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we already, we've already been reimbursed for those at this point.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Just $16,000 worth of snowflakes.
Yeah.
Yes, they're for the downtown.
I figure
snowflake
so, yeah,
decorations.
okay, thank you.
I was just gonna make a comment. I appreciate the update on the, blah, 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 the citywide. And, hopefully we can maintain a record year to year in the future with those. I thought those were good categories. Any suggestions that come out of, the debriefing here? Any other things that you'd change differently or things went well? Or?
The only thing I would note at this point is probably look at something other than mattress collection for next year. And Scott County just requires that we do paper shredding, regular debris, and then one other recyclable. So we could do like carpet, we could do furniture collection. So we just need to pick something else. But I think the mattress numbers were down a little bit, so maybe we take a year off of that and do a different.
But they collected wood, Lakers did.
Yeah.
So that really wouldn't be different there, but
Nope.
yeah, it was.
One of the numbers was really unusual to me.
We're down on paper a bit.
All of them, we were kinda down.
Kind of down on everything, you know.
Trying to find it. Was there something about autos or
No.
Yeah, there was,
what is that about?
Oh, that was the 515 vehicles came through.
What? Oh.
That was just the
How
number
many
through
vehicles
the
come through.
site by the ball field that Lakers
Yep.
tallied.
Okay, I thought we were trashing
No,
cars.
no.
No. We were up a little bit on the overall number of vehicles, but down on overall numbers. for that,
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
but we had never had to track prior to 2021. Now the county requires an actual tally of all these things, so that's why we now report back to the council on what we have for numbers, so. Because we never used to have good numbers, but.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Bruce, seconded by Maggie to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right. The Main Street reconstruction. Directing modification. Yes.
Mayor, you can hear me okay?
We can hear you. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi.
Hello, good evening. So before you for your consideration is a resolution directing modification of the existing construction contract. This is change order number 28. This is one that you will recall, we did discuss this last year. They had given you a heads up that this would be coming. I didn't anticipate it was going to take a year for the contractor to review and okay and approve the quantities that we had calculated. This was for what we call the sand backfill in the utility trenches and the sewer trenches and the water trenches in front of the 104 Main Street East, the consignment shop. Due to the structural concerns, it was a recommendation of their engineer as well as the city structural engineer that sand backfill be utilized in backfilling the utility trenches to basically eliminate any vibration with concerns again for the structural integrity of that building. At the time, we at rough guessed it and estimated it was gonna be in the ballpark of about $70,000. And as you can see from the numbers, we're at about just under 65, exactly 64,790. And this would be a portion between sewer and water based on the amount of material that was put in those trenches. And we do show on the, I think it was on the fourth sheet, just how the split would be about 38% would go to the water fund and 62% of that cost would go to the sanitary sewer fund. So other than, again, the kind of the shock of having to deal with this last year, again, this was expected. And it's in that ballpark of the cost that we had anticipated last year. Any questions, I guess, on that change order?
So it's completely on the citizens of New Prague?
Yeah, I know it was brought up, and I think it was discussed again with the city attorney. We don't, under this project and under the mechanism that we don't have the means to recover it through the normal 429 process. If there's an interest to try to recuperate that cost, which is probably not going to be very successful, I would definitely say that has to be, go through the city attorney to determine that and how the mechanism that would be to do that. As I point out in the memo, there's a lot of things that are done during projects that are done to minimize damage, concerns to adjacent properties. This was obviously just more of an extreme. Things like the vibration monitoring and other costs that were shared between the DOT and the city. Again, number of things that were done to prevent and minimize damage to adjacent properties, and this kind of falls in that same category.
But we were talking about just one specific building, right?
This additional cost was related to one specific building, correct?
And that building had severe structural problems. I mean, is that something that we should take a look with our city attorney to try to recoup some of that cost?
Sean, I know that we've spoken with Scott in the past, and he's basically said that we can't recoup these costs on a specific property owner.
Oh, you can't? Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, but thank you for asking that because that's where I was going.
I just don't want Chris to go off because I have a couple other questions that it's not related to this, so.
I do too, actually, since Matt isn't here.
Yeah.
Because
and I was
Matt's
gonna
not here,
add
so.
Through the assessment policy.
Oh, okay.
item. Yeah, so I'll be here for a while yet.
Okay, so with that, if there's no other questions, I would take a motion to approve this change order number 28.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order and the resolution 2206-2001.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce to approve the resolution. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, long as we're on Main Street, I have a question. So, this week I saw guys out there with levels from MnDOT, whatever they were doing. But is like that drainage problem by New Prague Floral gonna be taken care of before fall? Do you know?
That is an item that, and maybe, Matt can chime in on that one.
Matt's not
one
here, that's why I'm asking you if,
Oh, okay, yeah, that was one that, that Public Works was actually gonna look at trying to take care of.
oh,
We
okay,
come with a solution. And yeah, they had anticipated doing that before the end of the season.
okay. What about all the pops on the sidewalks?
Yep, that was one of the items, I got a kind of a list here of items that I wanted to update you on. There is a number of areas where there's some pop outs that, based on we have a special provision that was written into the contract that, there's a number of areas that don't meet our minimum requirements on the specifications. We're running into a little bit of a roadblock or button heads with the the contractor, they're balking at a little bit on that item, and they're wanting to have a lot more discussion. We definitely are not in the position to accept it. We're not satisfied with where there's I'll say excessive amount of pop outs. And we've been working with the MnDOT concrete office, have a meeting set up for next Monday with the contractor and supplier, and come with a reasonable solution. We don't know exactly what that'll be yet. I think a lot of us are feeling that it's probably not within the city's best interest to take out sidewalk, remove and replace, but to look and see if there's options to patch or fill some of those pop out areas. So again, we're evaluating options, and certainly will inform you with what those will be. So that has not been resolved yet.
Okay.
Can you define what pop-out means?
Yeah, so pop out occurs, if you walk in certain areas, probably the worst areas like down towards Wells Fargo, and then right over there by like State Farm building. There's real specific areas that happen to be a certain day, certain pours. What happens is there's certain soft aggregates, rocks that will absorb water. And when they go through a freeze thaw, they'll literally pop out, and they'll leave a depression. Some of them are as big as a quarter. You can see exactly where the rock was. The rock is no longer there because it just basically dissolved and disintegrated when it popped out. The worst will occur in the first season. 95% will occur the first season, and then it really doesn't appear after that. But it's left an unsightly condition in areas that you wouldn't have expected. The vast majority of the projects perfectly fine, meet specification. There's real specific areas where they must have got into a batch of bad aggregate, and it's left a number of pop outs on the sidewalk.
Thank you.
Do you want to go through that list now or later?
Yeah. So some of the other things, just to kind of update you on, the landscaping is really the only significant item. Well, really the only main item, pay item that's left to be done. They're scheduled to get in possibly late this week, but really the majority of the work is going to take place beginning next week. And it'll be in those landscape areas where the ornamental fences and the landscape sites along the roadway. So that should be done or mostly done by the end of next week. And that's really the last pay item that's left, other than the warranty work and dealing with some of these items that we need to have resolved. They do have a number of punch list items that include that do include concrete work that has to be removed and replaced. Areas where there's excessive cracking, areas that need to be replaced, and they are planning for a road closure that'll occur on Friday, July 8th, and continue through Saturday, July 9th, when they'll work on that removals and replacements on both Saturday and Sunday of the 8th and 9th of July. And so they'll set up the Dojinki detour is what they'll set up. And so they'll close the main thoroughfare through downtown will be closed, and the detour will go up to 7th Street and 10th Avenue. There'll be some advanced signage put up notifying the drivers that that's going to occur as well. The roundabout is, I think, the ongoing subject. MnDOT is assuming all responsibility at this point. They've decided this is not a contractor issue. It was an oversight on their part. The curb ended on the Columbus Avenue roundabout ended up higher than the curb on the center island at First Avenue. Right now, they're going to take kind of a wait and see approach. They want to evaluate it. We don't want to do anything while Columbus Avenue is under construction. It wouldn't do any justice for anybody. If they look at doing something, it'll either be after that or next season, or if it's decided not at all. They're gonna I'm waiting for a letter from them that basically addressed to me but addressed to the city kind of what their plan is. And again, it's, at this point, it's kind of a wait and see on the roundabout, and if something will happen a little bit later. Beyond that, we have a few just disputed items we're still working through to get close to finalizing this contract. So there's, it's beyond the pop outs. There's a gradient item we're trying to work through with MnDOT, and then MnDOT and the contractor. And then there's there's the cracked drive panels down on the west end. MnDOT and the contractor still working on a viable solution there. That's really all I have. Any other questions on your end?
I just had one more on my list. You answered a lot of them, but the handicap ramps going up to have turned all completely rusty and are leaking, that orange rust color into the cement. And you got this beautiful white sidewalk, and then you got these ugly rusty pads. Is there anything that we could do can you paint those, or is there something you can put over them it just looks horrible. And I've had a couple people mention it to me.
That's actually, it's a good question. We have tried painted in the past, and what happens is the paint wears off and then they rust and they do exactly what you're seeing. This is pretty standard that it oxidizes and forms that color. And from an ADA standpoint, it's the color differential, that's that perspective for the visually impaired pedestrian that they can see across. I know what you mean. There really isn't a lot of solutions. Again, painted truncated domes have been tried in the past, and they end up being exactly what you're seeing out there. It's just a matter of this happens quicker, and it'll hold that color.
Interesting. Any other questions?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I don't know if this is for Chris, but somebody had noticed that the population sign coming from the north is correct now with the new population, but the other three, both east and west on 19, and then coming heading north on 21 are still the old signs. I don't know why MnDOT would change one and not the others, but
Metro, MnDOT changed theirs, and District 7 from Mankato hasn't changed theirs.
oh, is that what it is? Okay. Okay.
Different district.
Perfect. I can answer that question for him.
So this one got changed? I didn't even
The
know
one
this.
coming from the north.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you later, in a little bit,
Okay. Thank you.
Columbus, we have nothing. The public's invited to be heard on any matters not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to address the council? Online or, in the audience? Do you have anybody sitting out there online? Okay. All right, if there's nobody to address the council, we're gonna move on to item number 10. First one is a resolution appointing absentee ballot board.
Now, what is that?
Well, I will go over that for you. So last week, 4 of us staff, including myself, Robin Pickle, Barb Alschmidt, and Leah Stenderell attended the absentee ballot training. So we had talked about this before, but starting with the 2022 primary election, we are mandated by Scott County to have a local site for people to fill out absentee ballots from 46 days before the election up until the day before the election. And it's really a convenience thing. Past years, everybody would have to go up to the respective county. So if you lived in Scott County, you'd go up to the courthouse. And if you lived in LeSueur County, you go down to the courthouse in LeSueur County. Scott County, when they started remodeling the courthouse and the government center, they started asking cities, can you take over the ability to do this? We don't have the room, we don't have the facilities while we're doing the remodel, and that kind of morphed into mandating cities to take that over coming out of COVID. And all the cities are required to do that as of actually next election, but we didn't want to have that come online during a presidential election. So we said, all right, we'll give it a go here in 2022, but New Prague is unique, obviously, that we have Seward County precinct, which is in a different county than Scott County, so Seward County voters do not have the option to do in-person absentee balloting here in New Prague. They still have to go to the county. So if you're a Scott County voter, you can come to City Hall. We're gonna set up the conference room as our in-person absentee ballot or voting location. And we're actually gonna handle through just staff training, processing all the absentee voters that come in. They have to, just like any other polling place, you have to look them up in the system. They get a ballot in paper. They have to fill out an application for an absentee ballot. I honestly think it's easier to just go online, fill your ballot out and do through the mail, but if you want to do it in person, we're providing that for Scott County residents. So as we do that, state law requires that we have what is called a absentee ballot board that will, every 5 days up until 14 days before the primary election and 14 days before the general election, they have to look at all the envelopes, make sure signatures match, that they're filled out correctly, and then they'll be accepted by that point. All we're doing until the ballot board looks at them is just taking in a filled out, packet of absentee applications. So they're required to accept the ballots, and that has to be 2 hired election judges. We cannot have it be staff because staff is not authorized by state statute to compare signatures. We can help with the process, which we are doing, but this ballot board is the only people that can officially compare signatures and make sure that everything's on the up and up on their absentee ballots. We've never had to do this before, and all the cities in Scott County now are doing it this year. So it's new for a number of us cities. I think prior election, Jordan, Shakopee, Savage, and Prior Lake had done it, and now Belle Plaine, New Prague, and New City of Credit River are doing it for this cycle. So kind of in the same boat there. But we do have to have a minimum of 2 trained members or 2 election judges be on our ballot board. We'll probably end up appointing 3, and we're actually still working to get those people lined up. They have to be trained as an election judge and familiar with our process. So we'll probably go through our roster of judges that we normally have work for us and find people that can serve on the ballot board. So again, every 5 days we have to do that up until 14 days before the election, and then we have, they have to meet every 3 days. And the whole idea behind that is that they don't have too many to be accepting at a time. So then they go into a locked box, and then 7 days before the election, we can then feed them into an actual tabulator.
Open them up and feed them through.
Do we have to buy the equipment?
We did have to buy the equipment, actually. It's 10 grand for the tabulator to do that, in fact.
But it is a mandate.
It is mandate, and then we also have to cover the, like I said, we're gonna try to cover it with staff for the primary, obviously taking away time from staff's normal duties, but we think we can do that for the primary. We're not so sure for the general, because you have to have a minimum of 2 people in your absentee ballot room or voting room at all times, and they suggest having 3 in case you have a need to go to the bathroom, take a lunch break, whatever. So it'll be an interesting process. We're not sure how many we'll have through the whole process. I think we had, for Scott County precinct, somewhere around 300 to 400 absentee voters in the presidential election. So if we hold that, it might not be a lot, but Scott County's estimating we could be between 40 and 60% voting absentee for this election. I don't know if that's gonna come to fruition at all, but that's what they're planning for as far as the number of ballots that we're gonna have available. But
And then half the people that'll come, that they have to send them, give them a map to the center or directions. to the
yes, we
center,
will deal with that. We're
Because
positive.
that'll be a big, oh, I thought it could come here.
Yep, and we can only do, again, residents in city of New Prague city limits, so even if they're from adjacent townships, they gotta go up to the county, which actually the county location this year will be at the highway
Again?
department again, yep. Okay. So, hopefully that kind of explains it, but yeah, the ballot board is required for accepting the filled out absentee ballot applications, and then ultimately they'll get fed into the machine, so.
I'm not sure I followed exactly how this works, but so last go around, or one of the times I voted at the highway.
Yep.
Are we talking about that situation, or are we talking about someone receiving a ballot in the mail and then turning it in here?
No, so if you receive a ballot in the mail from Scott County, and if you brought that to our polling place,
Okay,
we cannot take that ballot in because it has an ID on it,
okay.
and that would have to be turned back into the county. Now, we could then spoil that ballot. Let's say you got one in the mail, showed up here, we could spoil that ballot, give you a brand-new ballot, go through the whole application process again, and then you could vote here if you wanted to,
So we're talking about the same thing that was done at the highway department, but just here, so we have
just for
established
convenience.
days of the week and times of day that
We have to
this
do
is
it every day of the week, normal office hours 8 to 4:30, and then we have to do 2 Saturdays immediately prior to the election. So that would be, I don't know if I wrote the dates on here or not, but the Saturday before, we have to be open from 10 to 3 before each primary and general election.
So how many days is that?
You said 46.
It's 46 prior,
So we're staffing people for 46 days?
correct, before each election. So we have a little break between the primary election in August, and it starts again on September 23rd.
And this is why, because this is an unbudgeted mandate, basically, that we're trying to cover as much staff time as possible. So basically, knowing that we don't have to have somebody sitting in there quite likely all day long, they'll basically come to the counter to ask to vote, and then we'll have staff assigned that on that particular day. 2 staff members will go with that person. That way, hopefully disrupting both staff time and our budget as little as possible.
So we set up just like a normal voting room then with the curtains and the vote and, okay. All right. Then I'm wondering, are we communicating the issue that Dwayne's talking about where people, so they understand it's only people on this side of the street, or are we gonna try to communicate that? Or?
We're trying to keep communication on the process as little as possible, because we don't want to necessarily have hundreds of people come in here. But those that certainly come in to vote, we will have information that if you would like to vote through absentee LeSueur County side, you can call the number, or you can go down there in person and do it as well. But I honestly think it's easier just to do it through the mail regardless of where you're doing it. But I get the convenience that Scott County's going for as well.
And you'll get the people talking amongst themselves, well, I voted at City Hall, and,
Yep.
but they're talking to their buddy on the south side of town. And
Yep, we're prepared for it. We have maps and everything.
And you had that same issue with the special election when we met with the Secretary of State, and kind of put it in his ear, with all these extra. It'd be nice if they provide some money to the cities for this.
So are the townships required to do this as well?
No, they are not at this point required to do it.
Okay, because it doesn't sound like it's a
Oh,
practical
yes,
thing for
correct.
townships to do.
I don't think it would be very practical. I think it's very difficult for us smaller cities to do it. In fact, I think it's difficult for the larger cities to even do it, but particularly, us, Belle Plaine, Jordan, Elko New Market, it's a ton of work.
Closer to the election, it's gonna get busier, but I remember those girls sitting out at the highway department when they had to open up early, like that 46 days ahead. I mean, there were days, I'd walk in there, well, how many, and they'd say 3,
Yep.
1, and they sat out there for,
Yeah, so this starts Friday. They think we may be busy on Friday and then not very busy until 7 days before, where you can actually feed your own ballot into the tabulator. I think we'll get busier towards that time period.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch when are you able to
7
do
days
that?
prior, you can actually feed
Feed
your
your own.
ballot
Okay.
into the tabulator. You still have to fill out the application for the absentee ballot and go through everything, but you can then at that point feed it yourself.
you
into
don't
the
have to
tabulator.
seal it in the envelope.
No, we still have the envelope that we still have to compare signatures and all that. but-
Yeah.
And you can do the application the same day you walk in, or the
Yes.
same time? Oh,
Yep.
Then what kind of security do you have for that tabulator once they start?
So we have to have it in a locked room, and then all the ballots are in another locked cabinet or whatever. So kind of double locked room.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we can't use the room for anything else, so we're
Yes.
gonna be down a conference room for what amounts to 90 days for the rest of the year.
So much for your office.
And the envelopes that are held behind, do those get sent?
They get saved and sent to Scott County for record keeping.
Okay.
Cool.
So we can never identify ballots, but we'll have the the outer envelope, as it were, that's filled out with signatures and everything, so you can always go back and check that. And then, not to get too technical, but the SVRS, which is the electronic voter system, there's signatures in there, and that's how they compare, with what's on the envelope. So you look what's on file, what are they filling out? It's very interesting. I believe
Yes, it
very
is.
secure, but it's a lot of work.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Rick made the motion. Is there, establishing an absentee ballot board? Is there a second?
I'll second to approve resolution 2206-2002.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a resolution approving the city vehicle use policy update.
Yes, I'll take that. So, this particular vehicle use policy is actually found in the personnel handbook that is given to each employee, and that they sign off then that they have received it and will abide by it. The only change, that we're looking at making is 11A. Basically puts in some language that allows for public safety vehicles, to potentially remain unlocked, or in whatever state they're left in depending on the emergency. Just some examples, I know squad cars need to be kept running generally during the winter to keep that equipment. The newer ones can easily be locked when they're locked away, but the older ones, might not necessarily have those features. And then if there is some emergency where an officer or a firefighter gets out of the truck quickly because something's going on and they don't stop to beep the car, this clause would cover them from then being liable at that point. So, but other than that, looking over the city vehicle policy after that event we had about a month ago, it looks like it pretty well, it covers us, and that the vehicle in question shouldn't have had the keys left in it.
Okay, any questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Sean made the motion to approve resolution number 20-60, or 0620-03. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Rick made a second. All in, any other discussion? Yeah, go
Yes, I
ahead.
think the resolution number might be wrong.
Is it?
Should be 22, shouldn't it?
It is 2206.
You were right, it
20,
says 20 at the top.
Oh, yes, you're right. Good catch.
We can have that amended for the signature copy if you guys so desire.
Yep.
So then maybe we should amend the motion on the table to the correct
So, yeah,
resolution number.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve with the correction on the resolution to 22-06-20-03.
okay. So,
Second.
second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you for that catch. Okay, special assessment policy.
Yes, I'll take that one too, and apparently I was on a roll writing policy
Yeah, you were.
resolutions, because this one also says 20.
Oh,
But special assessment policy, it looks like in the past, the city has really operated off of what did we do last time? Let's build off of that. And I thought it was important that we actually get an assessment policy down on paper that we can refer to. Whether someone from the public has a question, or for some reason we get into a legal
Yeah.
challenge, having something on paper is much more defensible. So I did work with Chris Cavett, who sounds like he's still on, as well as Matt and Ken, just kind of getting their input on what we've done in the past. And that's the assessment policy we have before us.
okay.
Did you have anything to add, Chris?
No, I have not. I'd say just in the past, we've had more of a assessment practice that's been identified in every feasibility study, and this really doesn't differ from, again, what we've been doing. It's just formalizing what we have been doing.
Okay. We had a policy. All right. Any questions from the council?
I just wanted to understand, what's the time frame that a person is allowed to make that prepayment?
Okay.
Is the drop dead date specified in the policy, or is that vary?
Trying to remember.
I'm,
Do you remember, Chris?
Well, prepayment is within 30, by statute, is within 30 days after adoption of the assessment. So if anybody's going to do a prepayment or partial payment, it has to be done within that first 30 days after the assessments are approved.
they still could pay
Generally, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, they still could pay after, let's say if they paid day 35, they could end up having to pay a little interest maybe.
Yeah, so well, usually the timing, usually the way it works out is our assessment hearings are gonna be in October. They have 30 days up until sometime in November to make payment. And then the books really have to get closed, because then they have to be certified to the county, but they can go back and they can pay the county after the first of the year, and then, yes, they have to pay interest basically through the year that they've made payment. But yes, so they can make a payment with the county after they're levied to the county at any time after the first of the year.
Okay.
But yes, Bruce, bring that up. That is the one change I think that we put in here, was before we didn't allow any sort of prepayment unless they were paying off in full. And so we put the ability for them to make a single payment if for some reason somebody wanted to cut their assessment in half or something like that and didn't have the full amount to be able to pay.
So you're mentioning this as if it's a state, or the time period is a state requirement, or state? Or is that in law that's 30 days, or?
In states, Minnesota statute 429 allows payments without interest in the first 30 days after the adoption of the assessment. That's by statute, period. That can be modified or changed by, some cities will actually establish a date, like a deadline date, but the default by statute, then again, that the city's been using is 30 days, period.
Okay. So the only cost to the city in this, if somebody would make a substantially large prepayment, and we've already got the bond out there paying a higher interest, and we're not getting equivalent interest on the earnings that the money sits there. Is that the only cost involved in this?
Yeah, and I guess the staff time for collecting their payment and recording that Bruce Wolf has paid $1,000 towards assessment. But yeah, I mean, those are basically the two costs, is that small amount of labor and the interest lost.
Yeah, I'm not aware if we've had many people. I was only aware of one business that wanted to prepay, it was a larger number, but that still wasn't a big material number.
And I guess in my past, I've seen this more from residents who come in and maybe, like I said, will pay off half of it because they got a $6,000 assessment, but they can pay $3,000 now. And so they want to come in and pay that $3,000 so they don't have to get charged interest on that.
Mm-hmm.
And just the gymnastics of this, so that $1,000 someone prepaid just sits there till the very end, or is used over time to make the payment?
Yeah, so I mean,
do anything with it.
Yeah, that would go into our
Sinking fund.
our fund that basically we set up for these, and then as we make payment on the principal and interest payments that we make every year, we just pull out of that fund. So usually at the beginning of these projects, that fund is a little bit larger than we anticipate because you do get people that prepay, but it all balances itself out by the end.
And then the half would, let's say if they paid half, that would get certified to the county.
Correct, yeah, then we'd certify the other half to the county, and that's what they'd get assessed for a 15-year period.
Okay. Which anytime they could pay that off early if they'd want to too, but that'd just. be through
Correct,
the
they would just
county.
have to pay the full amount of interest for the year to the county.
Yep, okay. All right. Any other questions?
But yes, otherwise, this resolution also says 20 at the top,
So,
so we can get that corrected as well.
okay, I'll make a resolution, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 22-06-20-04. The approving the special assessment policy. There's, and Rick made the second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next item is general business, the rental dwelling unit inspection task force.
So I'll take that. So at our last council meeting, we had talked that tonight I would bring back the names for the final appointment to the rental dwelling unit inspection task force. I did check with everybody that had applied previously, which went back to March of 2020. I put the wrong date in there too. 2020 and 2022, wonderful. No, March of 2020 is when we last talked about that, and everything got put on hold due to COVID, but I did get enough names, people that did respond, except for one tenant position. My memo didn't note this, but I did end up getting the list in there correctly, so we have enough names. We have one extra landlord to choose from, and then we're short one on the tenants, because we did get Carl Swanson, who did indicate, he finally called me Friday that he is interested in serving as a tenant rep, so I think really the choices at this point are which of the 2 out of the 3 landlords you want to go with, and then which council member would like to serve on the task force.
I would like to serve on the task force, but I'd also like to run by you guys. Do we want tenants on the board?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We need all points of view.
Yeah, I would say if you're gonna have landlords, it'd be good to have tenants
Yeah,
too, just to
because
try
you're
to,
only gonna
just try to
hear-
balance out the interests, I guess.
And I think we can get a tenant, we didn't re-advertise again since last council meeting. I thought we'd maybe get the same people interested, but only got one out of the,
Yeah, I don't even think that second one is here anymore.
That Janelle?
Yep.
oh, she was actually an at-large, not a tenant, so.
Oh, she was like a community member?
Yeah, she's a community member. The other tenant was a Michelle Kotek, who did not get back to me, so.
Yeah,
But we can advertise for that again and just fill as we get applications in on that again.
do we want to appoint now or advertise and have a,
I think we could get going. I mean, it'll take a few weeks to set up a time that will work for everybody, and
okay,
we gotta get the city attorney and myself, the police chief, and our building official. So I think we could probably appoint what we have, and then as we get that final tenant spot filled in, we can bring that back forward to you.
Second question for you. Are you going to take and make up a whole new book, and then is law enforcement in the book?
Well, that's the big discussion, I think, at this point, is how much of that, crime-free housing component will be included. I'm sure we'll talk at the task force about the version that was in that ordinance that was given to you was a very much pared-down version compared to the crime-free housing component that was in previous discussions. So I think that's a big part of what we'll be looking at, among other items as well, but.
There was an article in the Star Tribune a couple of days ago. I think it was Faribault got sued because of the crime-free. And I think they lost.
yeah, they did. They
did.
paid out big bucks.
City lost?
City lost.
I think it was settled.
Oh, it was, yes,
settled.
settled out of
Might-
court, yes,
but-
yeah,
They're racially.
yeah.
Yeah, but it was something like a
biased.
700.
I think a lot of the part was not invalidated of that.
And Scott Riggs is the city attorney for the city of Faribault, so I think we'll have very good
Yeah.
Insight onto that process as well.
So I think it was to the tune of, what, 640,000 or
That's what I
something like
thought I
that.
read. You know,
Yeah, and that's why we pared it back initially, but that was, again, anticipating, this final outcome of what they ended up reaching. I think we now know.
Yep,
So we can continue on knowing, what are the ramifications of including that and to what level, and I don't know that we necessarily want to be a legal guinea pig for that. But
No,
we'll look
that's
into
right.
it.
Right.
yep.
And I forget, this was brought up last meeting or the meeting before, I forget, but there's this element of the building performance ordinance or something separate. Is that gonna be considered part of
Property
this
maintenance
group?
code, as it relates to if we want to get into the whole end of commercial tenant spaces, I don't know, that's kind of an unusual thing to do, but we'll look into that. And that could lead to a property maintenance code or a portion of it.
So property maintenance on the rental is part of this?
It
or
is part of it to a
the
degree,
residential?
only little bits have been taken out, but like Dwayne had mentioned, if we want to go to the path of non-residential rental property, that's really the only document you can go to from the International Property Maintenance Code to pull certain components out of there. Because you're not protecting the life safety, you're more looking at condition of building at that point.
And property safety. Well, there'd be a little life safety depending on.
Yeah, life safety, but not specific to tenants, which is kind of a whole
Yeah,
other
it'd be a different type of.
way to look at that, but
So property standard maintenance is part of this then, for residential?
yeah, we don't have, we're not going to like the peeled paint and all that at this point as it was drafted, but you can. And I'm not recommending that, but that's how detailed that code gets.
Yeah, I don't know the details. I'm just referring back
I
to
would
what
like-
Shakopee did.
We'll
Yeah,
we'll
and
look
I'd
into
like
it.
to look at that. if
Yeah,
you
we'll
could.
definitely, we'll talk about that.
Yeah. Okay, so then 2 people are off, Ron McBroom off of this list, and this Janelle, we couldn't get a hold of her.
Yep, she did not respond.
And Michelle Kotek, right?
And Michelle Kotek did not respond. She may very well end up being interested, but I did not hear back.
Okay. Any discussion on the landlords? I know Craig's been vocal and he wanted to be on it.
Yep, I heard that too.
Joe's been vocal also. I mean, all 3
I think all 3 landlords had been at different meetings that we
Yeah,
had.
you
on that.
know, Tony's, I think, more interested in would be, so,
I'm sure Tony reaches out to Craig and Joe too.
well, yeah,
I think
yeah,
Craig and
well,
Joe
I
are
know,
at every meeting.
I know Craig and Tony talk a lot, so I would say maybe Craig, Joe, Marcia, Carl, and Kay. Is that, and then there's also one more,
We'll still have one opening of a tenant.
A
but
tenant.
We'll continue to seek one out there.
And Rick.
and Rick.
Rick.
And Rick.
I could actually do both, the tenant and the elected official.
It's true, you are. But
Yeah,
I think if we could find another tenant, I think that would be
Yeah,
All right.
great.
But
They're out
Rick,
there.
doesn't where you live, don't they get inspected through?
Their HUD. I
HUD?
Yeah, we get inspected
Right,
all the time.
Yeah. So the situation
Yeah.
is maybe just a little different because I'm sure that your building is probably kept up to regulation, building code.
Used to be.
okay, so I would take a motion to appoint Craig, actually, I'll make the motion to appoint Craig, Joe, Marcia Sammons, Carl Swanson, and Kay Wilcox to the,
Rick.
rental, and Rick, council member Rick Seiler, to, the rental dwelling unit inspection task force.
I'll second.
And Sean made a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Abstained.
You're gonna abstain?
I'll abstain because I'm on the list.
Okay, the next item on the agenda. Oh, we don't have anything here.
No, there's nothing there, so.
There's nothing there, update on the.
No, I mean, there's nothing
ambulance?
in the packet. So, we had our closed session last time to
Mhm.
discuss.
Oh, yes.
The potential lease of the building. I took what we had out of that, and the next morning I, sent off an email to, Rick Wagner with North Memorial. Didn't hear anything for about a week, so I sent another email last Monday, about a week ago, saying, hey, did you get my email? Figured he did, cause it was an extension off of old emails. And when we put the packet together, I still hadn't heard anything, and so I sent him an email on Friday saying that I would be bringing an update to you guys. So still have not heard anything.
Okay.
So, I mean, at this point, we are 2 weeks of radio silence, after taking back what we had discussed during the closed session. So, I wanted to update you guys on that. I don't know if that changes anything from where you wanna go with it, but I figured I'd let you guys know.
Okay. Does the,
Do you have documentation that the email was received?
I do not. I just have the emails that basically I sent to them building off of old emails. I don't have documentation one way or the other that they received the emails.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question, Bruce, because maybe the next email that is sent or follow-up,
Some response needs to
you
be,
mark it, you know,
oh,
you get an
Read.
email back indicating that it's been opened and read.
And my experience with attorneys in law, you send an email and a letter, you can send the letter in an email, but also mail the letter. So you have documentation that the post office delivered. I mean, you have documentation then, and that usually holds up. But it's unfortunate, because communication is pretty important. So I just feel we need to document our efforts here, otherwise we'll find ourselves in a box.
Shouldn't we come up with a date or something that they're gonna have to respond, because we need to go ahead and move on?
And,
And if they don't wanna move on with us, that's fine.
and that would be my recommendation, I guess, is if we wanna set kind of a deadline that at least we get back into talks or something. Cause at this point, I mean, I can't speculate what's happening on the other side, but, it's been 2 weeks since I
is
reached out
the
to them.
contract up the end of 2023? Or
It is up, is it April 30th, whatever the last day of April is, I believe,
Okay.
2023. So we're a little less than a year out,
all right,
about 10 months.
okay.
Well, I like Bruce's suggestion of, sending an email, and my suggestion of making sure that it's
Receipt.
opened and read, but then following it up with a delivered copy of a letter, a correspondence of some sort, return receipt requested.
Because we can send that certified too.
Yeah,
so we don't-
exactly what I'd do.
And then the next time, then we'll set the limit.
Well, I think the correspondence should include the limit. It's possible that, they're running it through their
Legal?
their finance, but not to even say, yes,
got
we
it,
received
thanks.
it, we are processing the information, so.
The letter should make reference to your attempts to contact. So that's
Yeah.
in writing as well.
Is it the third or, something,
The council's getting impatient, okay?
Okay,
Is there only the one contact?
There's been the main one contact I've been working with, who I've kind of done all the back and forth in terms of contract talk with. I have other contacts with North. I just didn't know who was privy to the talks, and so I didn't want to
Gotcha,
add people I didn't
yeah, okay.
necessarily know what their role was.
Is, and I don't need to get into details, but is this individual the person that signed the contract, or is it the guy that made the presentation, signed the
So
contract?
this is the guy, I believe, that signed the last contract. I have to go look at it. But I know he's the one that has negotiated all the contracts in the past. And
So I can't recall the contract. Does the contract spell out who has to be contacted with any terms or issues with it? Or-
I believe it lays out kind of the legal, and then it gives the mailing address for where
Okay.
it goes.
If it does spell out a legal mailing address, that's what we have to mail it then.
Yeah.
Unless it says email is.
Well, and so it's the same, it's the same address that we had from the last contract.
Registered.
okay.
But I guess, would you guys like me to put it some sort of date, 2, 3, 4 weeks out?
Yeah, give them 30 days to respond. If you do not respond within the next 30 days, we'll
I give
assume
an
that
actual
you-
date.
Yeah,
versus 30
I
days.
can
But-
do,
but
I can
yeah,
do
I
30
got you, the
days
30
from,
days.
yeah.
I don't think that's,
I also just don't wanna push it out too long.
Nope.
Right.
Because at some
Exactly.
point, if we have to pivot, I wanna make sure that we have enough time to pivot too.
yeah, make it, not the next city council meeting, but the meeting after that.
I mean, yeah,
If
that,
they don't
I think
respond,
that
then-
would be about 30 days to
Yep.
get to that second meeting in July.
My personal feeling is that's too long, because all you're asking for is
A res-
communication in 30 days, which may mean just an agreement to get together in 2 weeks after that, which puts us
okay.
into September, or end of August. If I'm understanding what you said.
Well, that's true too.
But, so, obviously, we're talking about 2 or 3 weeks with no response.
So far.
2 weeks, yeah, so far,
So far.
right, yeah.
That's a long time.
I would give them,
When do you come back from vacation?
4th, so I mean, yeah, when City Hall opens back up on the 5th, I'll be here.
You know,
Yeah,
on or by, yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll send it email uncertified, and one of them has to get through. Though I know the mail is taking a little bit longer. We had someone stop in today that we sent a letter on, was it 14th? And they said they just got it today.
And I don't know what was going on with the mail, but there was an actual mail truck driving around and it's like,
Amazon.
is that what it is?
It's package delivery.
So there was no mail delivery today.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay,
Yeah, I would just suggest that you actually ask for a meeting. It's gotta occur within the next few weeks,
mhm.
not just a response.
No, there you go, yeah.
Would it be legitimate to call them up in front of the council again on the next council meeting?
What are we gonna say? You gotta negotiate?
Well,
I mean,
either you wanna take it or you don't.
well, that's, I think, the process that we're going through. We gotta have it documented.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. Registered mail.
Hey, 2022 visioning list.
Yes, we had talked about if, item ever got
Yeah.
light, and this went a little bit longer than I envisioned it going, so if you want, we can push the visioning list off another 2 weeks to the 5th. But if you'd like to tonight, we can kinda talk about the, list and how it's been kind of preliminarily put together, by staff and myself, kinda going through some of the projects and what we think we can accomplish and what we would wanna look at various times, obviously, budget pending and that sort of thing, so.
I guess I really read through this over the weekend. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of 2022. And I'm thinking, wow, that's aggressive, that's good. But, and I thought, you know, my big thing is that, okay, then, I mean, we have the list here and stuff, unless if somebody sees something that they really want brought to the front or something, but,
And the idea with this list would be that it would get approved and updated every year with the budget process.
Yeah.
So, yearly, we'd get to look at this list and stuff would move around, it'd move back, it'd move forward, it'd
Yeah.
disappear, and stuff would come on suddenly that we didn't see coming, but it is very much a working list, not necessarily a set in stone, all this stuff is approved today.
because I think it's a far better list than what was established, you know, I mean,
And part of it, like, also
Some
being
meat
that
in
this would be a public list, and so, it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
something that just kind of disappears, we'd all have
Yeah.
access to it, and if the citizen from the public wants to come look at it, they definitely can, like they could our comprehensive plan or our budget documents for that matter.
so what's the council's thought?
Well, these things are wish list, you know what I mean, and they're done upon, usually the city engineer's got his own list going, and you get so many lists, I don't know how concrete any of this stuff should be.
Well, it's just a list, and it's an idea, because if councils change, then they'll say, you know, we were kinda on this path,
Right.
and, you know, I never would have thought, I never give it a thought about the amateur state baseball tournament. You know, but yeah, that's something that needs to be in the list, because we gotta plan for it.
Yes.
You know, because there could be some cost of touch-ups and whatever else, and
And to your point, Rick, I know like the engineers have their CIP for street projects. That's something that I would like to put in this, just so the more stuff I can get into a single list, so we don't have 28 different lists that we're trying to reference.
That's what I'm
Is what I'm trying to accomplish here, to simplify things.
So is your intention to go through it or just to try?
Not necessarily go through it unless you'd like to. I mean, we don't have to necessarily approve it tonight either. If you guys have questions, or if we wanna take a couple weeks to digest it, maybe come back. I know we've kind of been through everything, if not about 95% of what's on this list.
and some of it's already under, like, the absentee balloting process
Yeah.
is already off the city hall.
I'll say, yes, some of it's easy wins that I'm gonna say, see, look, we're getting stuff done already, and the list is only passed yesterday. But, yeah, so some of the stuff on 2022 we've already done, or is in the process that you may see it within the next month or so.
If you take a look at page 11, and it's city council technology. So funding will be budgeted to purchase 3 laptops for use by the new elected council. If we're off the council, then they can just use our laptop.
Correct. The idea would be that since a council term is 4 years, within 4 years, that laptop may be running slow, and it would be the time for us to evaluate as to whether a new one's needed at that point.
Okay,
And so, yeah, even if you come back, even if you're reelected and you come back, maybe 4 years from now, your laptop just needs to be replaced.
okay. It's only 2-year-old laptop, but
Well, it's one of those things where it's, again, a non-concrete thing that we can evaluate and decide
Move
whether.
on, move it over, But you gotta have it on the list, otherwise I think it gets forgotten about.
yeah,
you
that's a
know,
good point.
You know,
Yeah, but like you said, there's some of the stuff that we're already working on, the rental inspection ordinance.
Yeah, no, that's good.
There's some things I'm not sure if I missed them or I just didn't catch them, but, like the recreational survey, is that in here?
Yes, that I believe is under 2023.
That we're not doing it until 2023?
Community recreational facilities assessment. That was one that we didn't budget for this year in 2022. And speaking with the school district, I talked with Tim not long ago, and he said, he thinks they'd be on board basically for their 2022-2023 cycle. And so the idea would be that we'd try to work it into the budget for 2023. And we could tackle that in the spring or early winter or whatnot when they're, that community recreational facilities assessment was different than the facilities assessment. The facilities assessment being like city hall, public works building, that sort of thing, where the community recreational facilities were like ball fields, and that sort of business.
I thought we were working on that.
Yeah, I thought,
I was expecting, I have it down for one of my questions in miscellaneous, to where are we? I thought that was like just weeks away.
Yep.
Because I know I want to talk about that 50 feet for the baseball team that wants to use that new area.
Yep, so I think what you're referring, I think a feasibility study was being done for the splash pad area as to where a splash pad could go in the city, and I think our discussion around that was waiting to decide about the 50 feet for the baseball team as to what that feasibility study ultimately came out with.
is that,
but we were dealing with Mike on it. We've been talking about this for 4 years, but we're talking about the recreational feasibility study and assessment.
No, it was an inventory,
Just an inventory
an
and,
inventory.
And I know when I came in, it was on one of the to-do lists, and it was
Right.
something that we decided to keep out of the 2022 budget because we were already felt like we were high. So I basically, that was the one that kind of came off because we were waiting to see if we could get the school district's help to pitch in for half of it, and they thought they could do it for their 2022-23 cycle.
Yeah, I know we had some, how do you describe it, not commitment from them, they basically didn't do anything. And
Yeah.
then our previous administrator, however you want to describe that discussion over the years, but it has become kind of a frustrating thing for me and others.
Yeah.
That it's taken so long, and we talked about doing it regardless of the school, I thought last year already, because we were not getting a commitment from them. If it was taken out of the budget, I just didn't remember that then. But you feel we had it in and we took it out?
So I know when I started, I think I can even go find the paperwork that says that it was in the original one that came in early August, and it was removed by the time I got here for the September 4 meeting, just due to the not being able to get the school to commit to half of it.
yeah, and see, that's what I remember, the school was kind of iffy.
Because then I talked to Tim in November, and he said he didn't know if they would be able to do anything until 24. So when we talked in early 2022, we said, well, maybe we just need to go forward then without them. I mean, at that point, we were into the 2022 year already, so I figured I'd slide into 2023.
Okay.
Now talking to Tim here about a month ago, he thought they could make it happen. And so my plan was just put it into the 23 budget.
But how will that fit in with our comp plan? Because it appears that we want to start
I think
full update of the comp.
it'll work well, Maggie. So we're gonna start the comp plan here in the fall of 2022.
Okay,
Probably look at land use, transportation, that end of demographics, and then next year would probably be park and recreation facilities and city facilities, and that, like the tail end of that. We had kind of done that process back in 2012, 2013 as well. So I think the timing should
okay,
work well.
okay.
And I understood it to be more than an inventory, that it was gonna be more of a needs analysis.
Inventory and analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of it, and really a description of maybe who's using what, and how much is school, how much is city,
Correct.
the trade-off, and so a much more in-depth than.
I very much envisioned it being very much what we're doing with our city facilities, getting very kind of in-depth on how they're currently being used, what
Condition of
what
them.
condition they're in, what may be the need for the demand that we have on them. Like, are we short 6 soccer fields or another baseball field, or maybe we actually have too many soccer fields, we just need to get people to talk to each other, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I did envision it being a quite in-depth process.
My druthers, my request would be to start this year in the process, because it's gonna be a long drawn out by the time you do RFPs and setting up a group with the school and the city working together. It's, and just the frustration that this has been going on for so long that it's just not sat there. So I don't know the feeling of any other members of the council, but that would be this and the other study, or the two that had no traction.
Yeah.
And I guess I could see if we want to get running with this, we could budget it for 2023 and see if we can get all the legwork done, so that come that first week in January, we're basically approving an RFP and that person's running before we're even out of January.
Yeah, or even having the RFPs available to be sent out in January or something.
Yeah.
That would be my hope. So by the summer or spring, because I don't get a lot of people asking me things, but this is one that over the years, people have asked me
Yeah.
about.
Okay, yep, that's
And
no
then
problem.
getting back onto Sean's with that other feasibility study with that splash pad, do you know the status of that?
Yeah, so the Splash Pad Group got approval for the Rotary to be their fiscal agent. I think it was at their last Rotary meeting from what Jessica Dome told me. And then I talked to Sarah Calla, and they're just working, now that they have that, to get their nonprofit formalized with the state. And then we can get going on that. So, very close.
Okay.
The other one I was wondering about is the green, I forget what you call that, but the green program or
Green
whatever.
Step Cities.
Is that in here?
So that is not in here, only in that is much more of kind of a small and there's no specific projects that we have yet pulled out. We're actually doing inventory of staff tomorrow during our staff meeting of what we've currently accomplished. And so there's been no specific projects pulled out of that program that are put in here yet, because I haven't had a chance to go through it with staff and then again sit down with the planning commission to get their thoughts on it.
Is it worthy to establish some goals in there? Because I think that program had a lot of flexibility.
And I think that's kind of where we're going. We want to inventory what we've currently done, because just doing a very preliminary look, I think it's possible we've already made step 2, just from stuff we've done on our own. At which point I'll kind of get with staff to get some recommendations on where we could possibly go with this. And then with the planning commission being our coordinating team, we'd go back to them and kind of work through them of which goals do we may want to recommend accomplishing over the next year or two. And then you guys would see those probably by early fall, I would imagine, at the absolute latest.
I would appreciate some mention in this document, so we have something to remind us that that's out there, and that the staff is working on something, and it doesn't have to be any hard rules or things like that, but I think the program allows a lot of generous flexibility and seemed like you had a list of like 300 things, and if you just have a
175.
goal of doing 10 or something, whatever
Yeah.
you pick.
Yeah, 175 things, but yeah, we can fit that into here.
And then, the first one on the list, I think, was something with
Staff
personnel
development.
development.
Yep.
And I don't see this as a strategic initiative so much, but I'm totally comfortable with having it here, again, just to remind us that it's something that the council supports. I think this is kind of like one of those things that should be automatic. It should be part of our processes here, and if we feel we want it in this document to do it, but to me, it's more of a, when you talk about looking at the personnel review process, this is something, in my experience, is more of a, in that process, that when you're talking with an employee, you are talking about the personnel development needs of that individual, and what are the things that we as an employer can do to help with that. But, so I do think that, I think somewhere in here you talked about doing the personnel review or something.
Yes, so we are actually starting here within the next probably couple weeks, our first go-around of a revamped review process for all city employees. So that is mentioned in here as something that we wanted to do in 2022.
So this staff development element can be put in there as well, I think, and should be part of a personnel review of individuals.
But I think when this document was made also, this was made to get everybody's idea, you know, and that's what it's
Yeah,
listed.
and I guess I put the staff development in there just as a reminder that
Yeah.
this is something we're trying to do. So if we've got our list of things we're budgeting for, that maybe it doesn't get forgotten about.
Yeah.
Was my whole purpose of putting that in there. But, I mean, I understand your point that it's automatic too.
Yeah, and the way it's worded here, it sounds like we're just putting a budget together to allow for it, but the budget could be zero or small number one year, it could be very large the next year, so just a budget, because the budget doesn't work either.
Yeah.
It's gotta be every year it could be different, but it's important, and, I'm totally okay with it being here. The second item about the debt payments, I totally support the concept idea, but I think as long as we understand this is an idea that we'd like to achieve, but every year we could decide not to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be years that it may not happen and other years that it may work better. I mean, that's one of those things where it's a real flux every year depending on where our budget's at.
Any other comments?
The, here again, we talked about this before, the discount memberships.
So,
To me, that's a dead end, but
yep, so we can talk about that one right now if you want to. So, I did talk to Scott Riggs about that. His interpretation was that we'd basically have to tax anybody's discounts that we gave them. And so his recommendation would be to make, and well, it sounds like in the past there was confusion as to whether we'd have to tax everybody or just the people receiving the discount. Scott Riggs said that in his opinion, we'd only have to tax the people receiving the discount. So if we did provide a discount to anybody, the idea would be that it'd be enough that it would basically be able to accommodate that tax. So generally assume that they're gonna get taxed between 20 and 25% on their income. So if you provide a 50% discount, it turns into kind of a 25% discount by the end of the year, if that makes sense. So my whole thought with the employee discounts was as kind of twofold. One is a benefit for city employees. Two, as a way of potentially increasing memberships at both places, because you may have employees that would not have had a membership otherwise. And so you're kind of de facto adding to those numbers and trying to make both entities make a little more revenue. But if it's not something council's interested in, I can kind of put a halt on that too.
well, my personal opinion is I just have a lot of difficulty with it, just living in New Prague and living through the discussion and the bad will that was created at the time the city did it. And I wasn't even involved in the city, just wherever I heard it, planning, zoning, or whatever it was, but it was not accepted in my mind by the residents very well. And secondly, I don't know how you can, it doesn't appear that you could structure in such a way that's fair to all employees. Someone might derive a value from these two things and really feel it's worth it, and therefore get a discount where other people don't, and they're not treated as well as the people that get a value from it. So
I mean,
a way to get.
yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be similar to, I don't think our health insurance does right now, but there are health insurance plans that allow you to have a discount at a local fitness center. That's not utilized by everybody. Or even, I know you work for some retail establishments. I know when I worked for Walmart in high school, you got a 10% discount. But I had coworkers who refused to shop at Walmart. I don't know off principle, but they work there. So I mean, I suppose it's kind of like any discount that you'd provide to your employees or benefit. Not all. I think we have employees who don't take our health benefit or they opt out of their dental benefit, and so I guess I don't necessarily agree with the argument that we should only provide benefits for those that we know are going to be accepted universally, when we have these resources as a city that we can not only provide benefit to, but also help kind of bolster the numbers.
But that would also maybe come into play at the golf course. What if someone said, I don't want a discount for the fitness center, but I sure would like one at the golf course. So that could create a little swirl.
And that was where my idea was to kind of do a discount for both of them, and you can opt into both or one or neither, and I guess that would be up to you. You're still having to pay some portion of it, so it's not a completely free benefit, but.
Yeah, and that was different than the old style.
Well, if we're talking about the fitness center, doesn't the school have to be involved? Because that'll hit their budget.
They would have to.
Yeah, so they would be. So this would be something that I would discuss both with the golf board and the joint powers board if this is something that we want to do. If you were potentially interested in going forward with before bring it back. So the joint powers board and the school board would both have to basically sign off on this potential discount.
And I apologize, when I read this, I missed the golf course, so.
Nope, no worries.
We work pretty hard to make sure that they're paid well, and I just don't know why create more difficulties, and especially when you're gonna have some participants, some not. You're gonna have people that are jealous. I just gonna create more. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good idea.
Well, Ken, maybe you can remember, I think there was only, when we had it, and it was a completely free membership at the golf course. I think there was only 7 employees out of 50, if that, yeah. It wasn't, some reason 7 sticks in my head, but, so it's not utilized a whole lot, but,
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I guess I wouldn't put it on to me, it's not an important goal or,
Well, I think I have mixed feelings about it because I think it is a nice employee perk. I've certainly received similar type discounts through employers, and some people make use of it and some people don't. But I would be willing to support it, a fair discount. And obviously the joint powers and the golf board would have to, I think, have discussion around that. And I don't know how many employees would actually take advantage of it.
I think I've probably had 3 or 4 employees have come to me asking about both of them, kind of 3 or 4 of each, just saying, hey, it would be a really cool perk for us to have, or is this going anywhere, that sort of thing. So I don't know if the interest is low just because it's not out there, but I mean, we have had a few employees since I've got here that have brought both of them up.
well, it'd be interesting to see if the school has to be involved, which they do, and they're a much larger employer than ours. They might have several hundred people, which impacts the budget that we split evenly as well.
And I know I've reached out to both of them. I can't remember the exact numbers for the golf off my top of my head. I know city employees, we currently have 9 employees who have memberships at the aquatic center. And so I guess not knowing what school-wise, how many there would be, like I said, my hope would be that, well, oh, hey, I wasn't gonna get one before when it was $80 a month for my family, but if it's only $40, now it can make it worth it. And we might pull in people who would not have otherwise signed up.
Yeah,
So, am I understanding that we're not gonna pay the full cost of the fitness center, but ask the fitness center to charge a lower fee?
Yes, so the idea would be to ask the fitness center to charge a lower membership fee, not necessarily a daily rate, but a membership fee for employees of the city.
Okay.
So right now, you're not getting our insurance carrier is not issuing checks to people that work out 20 days a month? Or anything?
No, they are not. So that is generally a perk that you have to build into your premium. And so I know Robin has reached out to kind of see what carriers may, and I mean, that's an option that they'll all throw into you. It just ups the premium. They're making their money, so they're just gonna up the premium to offset the cost, assuming that everybody does the program.
Well, I guess I don't mind if you want to start those talks so we can get some more concrete numbers and,
Information and.
and a,
School wants to do because
and a concrete plan.
that's gonna work.
And I'd like to take a look at, you know, I'm indifferent either way right now, I guess, so.
Okay.
Unless, of course, the council's involved.
Any other things you wanna talk about that?
Not necessarily in here unless there's something else you guys see you wanna discuss, move up. I know there's a dog park back here in future
Yeah.
uncommitted. I know we're all excited about that.
And I'll be real honest, I've been getting a lot of questions about that big time now. So for some reason,
You can tell them, you can tell them it's in the plan,
yep, and I've told them that,
just on the back page.
but,
My answer is usually, it might happen.
Well, it's an uncommitted goal.
but you know, they've brought up, and I plan on looking like Lesueur has a dog park with a washing station that they charge, that you can take your dog there and wash them. That's an income revenue to offset, you know, so, I mean, there's all kinds I've heard out there, and it's really,
I mean, in my profession in city government, I've always had people ask me, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do
Yep.
this? And I'll tell them, we can do almost anything you want. We're just gonna have to raise your taxes and that. All right, maybe we can prioritize a little bit
no,
better.
I know.
Wasn't there a committee set up for the dog park thing?
yes, yes,
Yep.
there is.
There's kind of is it impromptu kind of, or?
No, so when we had the survey results, which the council got to look at, we reached back out to the folks that had indicated interest, sent out kind of a group email with everybody, and they actually formed a committee, and they're continuing to talk.
Good.
And they know they need to fundraise and that whole process, but, yeah, they're just early stages yet of talking, so.
Good.
The only other one that comes to my mind that a question or maybe just a comment about was, I'm trying to find out where those were. There's a couple back-to-back, elements that talked about police, I think staffing, and then maybe right afterwards, maybe police vehicle or something
Oh,
like
yes.
that, and there was a couple things that were more with the police. And I think I'm trying to find that spot, but.
Page 9.
Page 9. See, police Phoenix, yeah.
I think these are totally, valuable elements to do. I'm just wondering if this can be done in conjunction or part of a more comprehensive review of the police, activity, staffing, and things like that.
Yeah,
What we're kind of, in some of these cases, what we're talking about is a solution to a problem that's not been described or identified or researched.
Yep.
And increase the total number of police officers by one tells me that in 2023, we feel we don't have enough police officers. So what's going on? How do we feel about it? And our conclusion is we need a police officer. So some of these are answers
And, yeah.
to oppose questions that not written here.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and some of these, especially as we get into the future, are things that we've tried to think of that, because I think if you go another year or two down the road, there's also a potential wastewater employee in there. And so some of these are put in here too as just kind of discussion points so that we can start discussing and
Right. And
researching problems such as expanding police staff.
yeah, and maybe that's where I'm just trying to get at. This is hopefully gonna be a discussion about
Oh, yeah.
where we're at, and the result of that discussion may be these two things, instead of working backwards.
Yes.
Say, well, we need a new police officer, and now we're gonna back into it, because,
Well, officer safety becomes an issue. I mean, so that could actually be written in here, right here.
But, you know, I guess it was a wish list by everybody, and that's, you know, visioning and
well, like in
So-
other
so,
cases, you said you conduct a comprehensive review of our police services and what our needs and
That's right.
things would be. And I'm not asking for us to do another survey, but something like that
And maybe that would be a
process
better way of
that,
wording it.
that says, that's our goal, is to conduct the survey. As a result of that survey, you know, we're gonna get new paintbrushes and da, 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 da.
No,
da,
you're
and
right.
A new police car or, you know, all that kind of thing. But
I think some of that would come out as a process in our budgeting again of where we are today compared to, you know, the last 5 years in our stats and what is happening in the police department. So I think, Bruce, I believe you are correct that, yeah, we just threw something on paper here, as an idea that, yes, our vision indicates that, yeah, we may need another person then. And so it just got put down, but we will bring that
yeah.
through the process of this is why we need
Yeah.
that person.
yeah, and I'm not trying to criticize anything that's here. I'm just trying to better understand that we're going through a decision-making process that results in this is what we feel we need to do, that there's some analysis that's being done on it. But a little different slant on that in the budget process, though, is do we have the police services, or we offering the police services we feel we need for our community type of thing? And you brought that up one time. We've had that discussion before. We're just looking at the budget, we're looking at, like, compared to last year, what should we be for next year? Well, I'm trying to understand, are we totally comfortable with what we have from last year? And is it, are we, and I'm just kind of using the police as an example. Are we looking at, same thing for parks? What should we have for parks when we look at the city of New Prague and that type of thing? So I guess my comment was that we, hopefully, as you go through this process, we're looking more holistically, comprehensively about it.
Any other questions right now?
No,
Okay, I will make those changes then. And we can bring it back June 5th to kind of get a half-year approval until we approve the 2023 version.
okay. All right, now we're into miscellaneous. We have the meeting minutes from the EDA and the park board. I'll go around. Maggie, do you?
I don't have anything.
Sean?
Just a couple things. Did we send a letter out to the PVC pipe, that lot?
Yeah, I think it got mowed and the pipe should have been picked up today.
Oh, really? Cause I
Because it
drove
was
by it
still there
earlier.
yesterday.
Yeah, it
And
was.
This morning it was.
So.
Oh, good,
You know,
okay.
if there's one pipe missing from a pallet like that, the rest is garbage.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the attorney was thinking when he told you that, but,
For what now?
the attorney told you that, if it's a building, material,
Yep.
that it can stay there. But if you take one piece out, that's refuge.
Well, I think Matt, in this case, I don't know if it had been from the same batch or whatever, but it just sat out in the sun for too long.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, it was unusable, so it became refuse. And then the other thing was the pitching mound deal. I don't know if we need to, is there a way we can lay that out so people can see it? I don't know when this group is gonna get together, but we already pretty much determined the splash pad, that isn't gonna be a good place for the splash pad with flying, foul balls and stuff land in that area all the time. But they're only needing 50 feet. I don't know if we need to map that out so you guys can see it, but I wanna get it in front of the council and vote on it. These guys are not just the Orioles, but all the baseball, the high school teams. They just hosted the Legion tournament last weekend. They need that space, and it's not very much, and I just don't wanna see it.
Map it out, if they have.
If you could, that'd be great, and
Do
then
they have some, other than just
I'll-
50 feet?
yeah, I'll have them give you a call. They wanna come in and present, and I said, well, let's just wait. We were waiting on
That's what
this
they said too.
splash pad group and parks
Yeah, we
group
can
and
map
whatnot, but,
Is it temporary? Can
no, it would
be-
be in addition to
It
the,
would be in addition to.
So it has to be a permanent, we can't decide later what the use of that property would be then?
Well, you're gonna
no,
need
we're
backstop.
just only gonna use one thing against the fence, I mean, it's not 98%,
50 feet long?
right.
Oh, how wide?
I don't know, what is a pitching mound lane? Probably
That's what I need to know.
15? Well, yeah, that's just it.
I would say
15
15,
by
20
50.
feet, something like that.
And I don't even know if it was 50, it might have been 40.
Yeah, check with it. There's gotta be specs on it, especially for
Well,
high school.
We'll just get the
college.
people to come in that have been impatient.
I'll
to-
have, one of them reach out to you.
Yeah.
So, but I just don't wanna see this being a 3-year process with,
No.
ultimately, we're gonna probably
Has the
give them the
park
50
board
feet.
spoke about this, or?
I don't even know if it's a park board issue,
I think the park board had talked about just on the level of, they were looking at the splash pad further to the north, and there was gonna be an area, I forget how many feet from the ball field fence to where the splash pad would even be considered to go. There's plenty of room, I'm sure, but, that was all the further that discussion.
It was just based on the results of the feasibility study.
Is this a park board issue?
I would say it's something that could be routed through them for our July meeting.
Oh, I just don't wanna disrespect the integrity of the process if,
what did we do when we did the other? We had a separate committee that did the major rebuild of the stadium.
Right.
Yeah, that was.
That wasn't a park board issue.
not.
Yeah, I mean, the park board isn't responsible for the outdoor pool property in any way. It was just a site that was brought up, by this group, and that's why the feasibility study was suggested, because there are potentially better sites
Yeah.
within the city.
it was park property though, wasn't it?
Mhm.
The outdoor pool.
Well,
That wasn't,
it's not
I mean,
technically.
It's city property.
It's city property.
Well, all parks are city property, so I'm not sure
It's
what.
not like identified as Memorial Park per se, it's the ball field property and the pool property.
I don't oppose it in any way if it seems to fit and make sense. I just wanna.
Yeah, just
not ruffle
respect that,
feathers,
yeah.
Respect other people.
no, I just wanna just
Point these
get it
boards in.
in front of everybody and have.
But the only reason they're asking for it is it's because it's available.
And it's, well, they need it, and they knew that it was coming, yes. They
And
knew
I-
that
I'm
that
If it
sure
wasn't
pool was gonna
available,
be.
they wouldn't be.
Well, they, no,
No,
but I
no,
think,
well, cause the pool was there.
I'm supposed, I would imagine it got mentioned over the course of the years that, well, the pool's gonna get demolished, but when, and now
Right.
it's demolished.
Oh, they've talked about it for years, yeah,
So-
ever since we closed it.
Okay, anything else there, Mr. Ryan?
No, that was it, I just wanted.
Okay, the only thing I have, did the state change the stoplight times out on
10 and 37.
10th and 37 there? Because my God, it backs up on the north end,
If
or,
it changed, it was Friday or Saturday, cause we had park board cleanup at Greenway Park, and you are correct.
Yep.
No.
so if somebody can call the state and tell them to check the,
I'll check with them. It could have been from the high winds
yeah,
that
something
the
got
cameras get knocked off
Yeah.
and they don't read the lanes that they're
Yep.
supposed to.
Because, boy,
It was
well,
long
that
today.
southbound coming to Main Street or, like past, it really backs up, it backs up past the clinic. And
It is nice though when you have to take a left going north and you see it from 3 blocks away that it's green and you think, I can make it, no problem.
We know who changed it.
So if you would call the state and
I'll
tell
call
them,
them in tomorrow.
ask MinDOT to fix it. Thank you. That's all I had. Bruce?
Just wondering the status of that community center loan?
Yeah, so the community center, let me grab my notes, I just talked to Scott here again today. Last time, when I talked to Scott today, their office is doing some title work right now. So basically where we got was that, the bank tried again with the county to, have them record the loan, and they took it this time. And so they've actually loaned them the money, and the construction has started out there. And I think they started work last week, actually tearing the floor out. And so at this point, I talked to Scott, and his office is doing title work because the bank is still under the interpretation that if for some reason the loan was to go belly up, that they would seize the property. Talking to Scott, he goes, as far as we can find so far, the city has signed nothing, and so it's good luck getting a hold of the property. But that being said, his office is doing some title work just to make sure, and make sure that we have all the information to see if we as a city should proceed in any way. And I guess there's always the option that if we want to be able to, I guess, take on that liability, we can. He said we may just have to go through a slightly different process since in his interpretation, the city would not be able to sign the document as is. So, yeah, at this point, they're trying to work through to make sure that the city hasn't signed off on anything recently in the title work. And he said for whatever reason, it's just taking longer than normal to get that information back.
And I guess this led me to a different question. Did you see a file or any previous city work on this before?
So, I mean, I've seen the documents that came from 2011 or whatnot.
Okay.
I mean, I've seen those documents, and
I can't recall if it was done through the New Prague EDA, maybe that's why.
so it looks like
More
it was transferred
confusion.
over to the city, and then it was all accomplished back in 2011. They didn't do any of that stuff until it got transferred over to the city, at which point it does look like the city signed off on it.
Yeah, I think it's in our financial statement, or it has been in the past. So it's the way it was structured previously. So if they're not involving the city now, then it would be a debt we wouldn't have to have on our financial statement.
Oh,
Correct.
But in the past, it was done through the EDA, I thought, or something like that.
Yeah, so the original one in the 90s was done through the EDA, and it looks like the one from 2011 was then transferred over to the city, and the city signed off on as the guarantor on that one.
Right, yeah, and the loan was actually done to the city, and the city lent the money to the community center.
Something like that.
And they paid.
And then that's when the two contracts were up, and supposedly they are, we could reevaluate whether we're gonna charge them rent or not, because we don't charge them any rent for that property. So,
For the land.
yes, so that'll pop back up on our radar here. If them two contracts have been completed, we can reevaluate whether we're gonna charge them rent or not. My theory on it is we won't charge them rent until, cause they want a second sheet of ice. And if they find the funding to do it, go for it. That's the way I looked at it. Then we can charge them rent. So I don't know. Financially though, we'd be pushing them too hard if we started charging them rent now. So I don't know. Another thing to keep in your brain.
So yeah, at this point, we're kind of in a holding period with that whole thing until Scott's office can get done reviewing kind of their review on the back end, and we can decide one way or the other whether we want to support it, remain silent.
Is he actually preparing a title opinion?
I'm not entirely sure how deep they're going in terms of that title work. I can get clarification from him on
Yeah,
that.
are we gonna see any written document that he produces as a result of this work?
I guess that was my assumption, but I can get clarity on that.
It would be nice to know, because I have a hard time understanding
I do too.
how they feel they could foreclose on it.
Mm-hmm.
They can foreclose on the building.
Yeah, and
maybe.
that was Scott. He's like, I'm pretty sure they couldn't foreclose on it, but that's why we're doing this title work real quick, just to make sure.
Yeah, to me, it's a question that's posed to us, that's not been answered, so we should resolve it.
Mm-hmm.
Questions answered.
Anything else there, Mr. Wolf?
Nope.
I only had one question. Jim, how are we doing on, employees? Do we got enough officers out there right now or what's?
We are fully staffed right now. We are at our 10 that are mandated, or that are authorized, and, we are going through a process right now. We had, 5 applicants. I opened it up until the position is filled. That would have been my backfill for when I retire. No date was set yet, but, we are trying to at least get a couple candidates that would be viable candidates right now. It's, very difficult. I know, Minneapolis had their decision come down today.
I just
for
saw that.
7/31 that they're supposed to be
That
hiring.
they got a mandate, their mandate to the amount of PD they have?
Yeah,
So the city charter says that they're authorized for a strength of 731, and there was a group that sued the city and said, you gotta get to your mandate, and went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, the city, you gotta get to your 731.
Yeah, they're way down. I mean, they're like 400 and
they're down like 300.
So they need,
Yeah,
I think the previous order was for them to hire 196 or something by the end of June of 2022. That's not gonna happen either.
when the business owners started the lawsuit, they were down 300 officers at that point. That's why they started the lawsuit, because the council said, we're not doing that. And well, you don't have that option, so.
So yeah, the market's real tight out there. Every department is hiring anybody that they can.
anything else?
Nothing.
Jim?
Nothing.
Ken?
Nothing.
Josh?
couple things. It was mentioned by Chris. As of right now, it's looking like on July, was it July 8th? 8th and 9th, we're having those Main Street closures, basically for a 36-hour period from 8 in the morning on a Friday until 8 p.m. The next day. So I'll have that in my weekly update, but just as a reminder to you guys. I wondered what your guys' application was on, or your appetite was on proclamations. Usually about every other week, I get an email from somebody or some group saying, hey, will you make May 22nd or August 4th, such and such day? And I was wondering what your guys' appetite was on that. I've worked for city councils who every meeting you've got 3 different proclamations for today's cut your grass short day and blah, 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 or some of them are awareness for unborn babies day and that sort of thing.
I think they give out enough awards around here.
And I've worked for other councils who they're like, we don't really want to get into that at all. So I just wondered what your guys' appetite was, if I should just keep turning these away, or if you wanted me to start bringing
Are they
some.
from local groups, or are they from national?
Usually they're from some sort of national group.
Yeah.
My opinion is not to entertain them. It can become a political.
And that's kind of what I get. My opinion kind of leans that way. Same way when I get even a local organization saying, "Hey, will you sponsor this, such and this, or give to this charity?" And usually, my opinion with that is, as a city, I don't feel it's my place to be giving out tax dollars to different charities, because
I think
that is.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to question on that, and then my last thing. Dwayne and I will be meeting with Commissioner Brecky here on Wednesday, just to kind of discuss how things are going. And one of the things I do plan on bringing up is this election thing, because while it may be convenient for a few people, it seems to be putting, especially as small cities, it's hurting us a lot more than it's conveniencing the few that are going to use it. So if you had anything else that you wanted us to necessarily bring up with her, shoot me an email or let me know, and I can make sure it's put on the list. That is all I've got.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
What happened?
It's like boom, boom.
Well, it's about time. Usually it just sits there. I'll take a motion to adjourn and nobody,
Moving along.
well, you had that list.
Oh, yeah.